Hi, it's Leya. I woke up with a relatively good hair day today, and the kids are behaving. My oldest is finally back in school, I wanted to do my favorite reads of 2018, just a little roundup of what I enjoyed. Alright, we're going to start with Paws, Claws, and Magic Tales by the Fellowship of Fantasy. It's an anthology of cat tales, magical cat tales. Normally I wouldn't probably include an anthology, but I mean, it has cats, come on. And it was a great roundup of stories. I really enjoyed it. So that one gets mentioned. Alright, next up we're going to go with Biodome Chronicles by Jesikah Sundin. Biodome Chronicles is a mix of futuristic, like sci-fi and fantasy, in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before. It is incredible. I mean, you guys really seriously need to check it out. It follows, basically there's this experiment going where people are trying to see if they can do a colony on Mars, if they can keep people mentally intact for such a mission, and to get people to live there. So these people go in this biodome, and they end up sealing themselves off for like 25 years. So they have no contact with the outside world. They have no idea. Their children are born with like no idea of the technology available, which it's pretty advanced at that point. I mean, you've got drones that have holographic reporters and stuff that, you know, try and spy on you or ask you questions or whatever. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And then the other side is Philion, which he is the son of the guy who created the biodome, and he is, well, his father is kind of a psychopath. So it's really interesting seeing him go from so broken and so torn down to the ending when he is just like totally changed. He's had to overcome a whole heck of a lot. Book 3 about broke me. It was good. It was so good. And normally, like, I get a series, I'll start a book and I'll be like, oh, I want to read the rest of the series, but not right now. I don't know if I have the time or the energy. With this one, I was like, I have to read it now or I'm going to die. So get it. I'm telling you now. All right. Next up is The Confectioner's Guild by Luana. This one is, it was a short story in the young adult anthology, an alliance of young adult authors. That Moment When is the name of the anthology. And when I first read the story, I was like, I have to have the whole thing. It was one of the ones that stood out. It stood the test of time. Like, you know, I didn't have to go back to the book to remember this story. I was like, I have to read the rest of this story. Because it's about a girl who is, who ices cupcakes. And she finds out that by doing that, she's infusing magic into what she's doing. And, so, I mean, magical cupcakes, come on. It's a beautiful story. And it is the first in the series. I think the rest of them are starting to release or have released recently. But it is amazing. The fantasy world that the author creates is just incredible. I mean, it's kind of parallel Earth, but like 1800s, maybe late 1800s, but it's, I mean, totally fantasy, so it's like, you know, we got all these different islands and stuff that aren't, you know, in Earth, so it's really well done. I loved that. The next up is Spice Bringer by H.L. Burke. Now she's also the one who organized the cat anthology, and Spice Bringer is one of her regular books or whatever, and it's about this girl who is basically terminally ill, but there's this spice that keeps her still able to breathe and live. She was found to be with the illness, like at the rasp, I think it is, at a very young age, and she wasn't expected to live even as long as she has. She's like 16 at the point, I think. And the princess of the country decides that she needs the fire salamander that keeps these plants alive. And there's this like major misunderstanding. And so the girl has this one final plant and has to take it to safety because it's stronger than the rest of the plants. It's specially breeded to be especially effective against the rasp. And so she ends up with this companion along the way who's trying to divine from the gods what his purpose is. He's a follower of the, I think, all-knowing God, and he's supposed to cast dice to figure out what his next step is, except for whenever he casts the dice, they come up blank. So it's really, really, really interesting. It's a great story. It's a bit tragic, but it is excellent. The next one is The Faceless Woman by Emma Hamm. The Faceless Woman is a retelling of the Swan Princess, and I don't think you've ever seen a story quite like this. It ends on a cliffhanger, so I need book 2. But it is an incredible romance. It's incredible adventure. The main character, she is branded a witch, and basically she has no face. She's been spelled that nobody can see her face. She hasn't even seen her face. She doesn't know what she looks like. And she doesn't understand why these spells are on her, what is keeping her hidden. So it's in the process of being burned alive at the stake by some humans who are suddenly afraid of her. She sees this this guy who she thinks is like this crow god or whatever, and she curses him, and it basically binds their lives together. And so then they're going on this adventure to try to figure out how to untangle their lives, only to find out that there's a lot more untangling that they need to do to really stop anything. So it's incredible. You really, it's a beautiful story. You got to read it. All right, Make It Count by Tamar Sloan. If you like food at all, you will love every description in this story. The girl is afraid of going out. Basically, when she touches someone, she finds out exactly how many days they have left to live. And so she doesn't let herself touch anyone until this one guy who is smoking hot with maple syrupy eyes and brown sugar lips or whatever. She is like so, enthralled by the guy, and he makes great brownies. And his mom happens to be one that her mom is sending her to try to get her over her fears. So she starts falling for this guy, and of course wants to kiss him, but she knows that when she does, she's going to find out how long he has left to live. And she actually finds out that he is very close to dying. He's got like 10 days left or something when she finally does touch him. And so it's that desperate, what do we do now? How do we fix this kind of a thing that she's going through? And she has to go through a lot of changes in order to really accept the fact that, some things are out of her control, and she can't fix or do everything, So it's a beautiful story. It's really well written. It's a fantastic romance. I love it. Next up is Soul Catchers by Carrie Pulkinen. And sorry if I mispronounce anybody's name. But Soul Catchers is basically Little Red Riding Hood, except for it's in kind of a post-apocalyptic world. And the girl wearing the Red Hood's supposed to protect her from the wolf. She has magic. She's not supposed to. She's living in this community. They're all segregated and cut off from each other because of the threat of the wolves. And she forgets herself one day and ends up getting bitten by the wolf. So she escapes the city she's in, only to find that there are people living outside these cities. And this conspiracy runs a lot further than she thought. So that was really good. I loved the twists and turns in that. That was really excellent. Malevolent by K.M. Carroll. This one was surprising. I was thinking, when I read the title, that it was going to be like a fairy tale retelling or something. But it's about this girl who is very sick, and she meets this guy who's he kind of keeps himself away from other people because he feels like everyone sees him as a monster. But she doesn't back down from him. And he's a beekeeper. He comes to heal the orchard with his bees to kind of help with the orchard. And in the process, they kind of strike up a bit of a friendship, and he realizes that his brother is dating the girl, and he is draining her of life, basically, and making her sick. So he gets pretty upset about the whole thing. He's been running from all this, but he can't anymore. So that one was surprisingly wonderful. Like, there's this scene towards the end, and I'm not going to go into it, but it's almost funny, because it's just like this crazy turn of events, and then she's like, oh, whoops. So, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a beautiful romance. It's incredibly intriguing, and I do have to go back and get, I think, the next book in that series too, because I don't think that one's over either. No, it wasn't, because yeah, definitely not over. Okay, next one is Spark by Anthea Sharp. This one is one of those RPG lit books. It's about the Fae Court, which is parallel to our world, and they're trying desperately to rip through. Spark starts, I think, the beginning of a spin-off series in the same world as, is it the Fairy Courts or something like that? You'll have to look it up. Or I might have to look it up. But basically, this one girl, Spark, is like this top-notch gamer, and she ends up meeting this guy who is he's a hacker, and she's like, oh, that's cool, whatever. He seems cool, but he ends up getting caught up with the Fae, the Dark Fae, and she's one of the guardians sworn to protect the world from the Dark Fae Court. So they're kind of running on different and parallel tracks at the same time. So that was really cool. I loved the gamer aspect of it, and quests, and it's a neat fantasy twist. And I'm like starting to get into some of the RPG lit stuff. I'm not like hardcore, so this is probably on the lighter side, but I loved it. So, all right, Gateways to Alissia by Dan Koboldt. The third in the series came out earlier this year. I forget, it was like Rescue in Alissia or something like that. It is a fast action. It's a little bit romance. It's a lot of bit intrigue. I mean, there's a lot of head games and stuff that go on. The main character is an illusionist, and he is charismatic. I love him to death. Oh my gosh. He's an illusionist and charismatic, and they find this company finds this portal to a parallel world, where magic actually exists, and wyverns, and like some crazy stuff. They have these mules. They're called smart mules, because you have to talk to them in order to get them to do things. You can't just like pat them or guide them or whatever, and you have to be very polite, or they will not do what you want them to do, which is kind of hilarious. but yes, that's that story, and there's a lot of political stuff and military type stuff in there, but it's a great paced, intriguing story. Just wondering how they're going to fix everything and work all this out, because basically the company is looking to mine this other world, which is technologically less advanced, and they could like totally ruin that country by doing so, but or the world or whatever. But they're determined to do it anyways because they've got some amazing resources over there. So pick that up. That ended up being a trad published trio, but Dan Koboldt is he's the science. He's a scientist, and he's got a blog of all of these different science facts and stuff, which is a lot of fun if you're into that sort of thing. It's called, I think, Facts and Fantasy, is his series or whatever. Facts and Fantasy, and science and science fiction. He actually has a book too, that he co-wrote with a bunch of other different scientists, with correct scientific information for novelists, which I think is really cool. Which I have to read that. We're getting there. But yeah, pick that series up. It's really incredible. Let's see. We've got the Edinburgh Seer by Alisha Klapheke. I've only read book 1. I've got the rest because that was one of those ones that I had to pick up. The Edinburgh Seer is another kind of food-based fantasy. Basically, the main character is the daughter of this guy who does these confections, and he can infuse them with different things, and he does some for like the army to weaponize them and stuff. And there is another guy that they take on. Obviously, he's caught her eye, and he is kind of spying. So, and it's not entirely what you think at first. So, that one was really interesting. Of course, the romance between the two, and fantasy foods. I mean, just where can you go wrong with that? And it's set in like a modern day Edinburgh, which I believe is in oh gosh, like Ireland. I think it's in Ireland. But it's a fantasy version of it, so it's not modern day Ireland like you would expect. They've got different government and rule and that sort of stuff to it. So really intriguing. Definitely pick that up. The last one, well, second to last that I'm going to mention is Jack and the Big Stalk by Dan Allen. This one, I don't know if it's published anywhere. I got it as a beta read, and it was so good I had to include it on the list. It is a sci-fi retelling of Jack and the Giant, and the Beanstalk or whatever. And Jack is a guy whose father died, and he blames it on this corporate giant who created this elevator that takes you into space. It's tethered to this island by this this very thin but very durable metal, and they take visitors up there into space, into the space station and stuff. And it is kind of freaking incredible. I mean, it was so different. It was one of those stories that just stood out, even though it's not published, even though it's a short story. It had to get mentioned. So, and then I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shifted, from the Shifted Academy series, which is releasing January 8th. Now, I'm not writing all of this, so yes, I might be biased, but I am. It's not completely for me. I'm not and I'm reading other stories that's in the Shifter Academy world that's being written by Joanna Reeder and Jesse Booth, and Tricia Barr is the other author. She's kind of heading all this up, and Alessandra J. Is the other author, and then myself, Angel Leya. We're all writing in this shared world, and it is. I mean, I can't even explain it. It's so big. It's so amazing. We've got shifters of all kinds. We've got mermaid shifters, dragon shifters, phoenixes, griffins, kitsunes, that kind of stuff. I mean, like, really, really cool stuff. We've got magic. Selkies are in there, but instead of being just a shifter, they don't just shift into seals. They have to use magic to do so. And my character Kenzie is a Selkie, which is a lot of fun to play, to write. And then we've got Jesse Booth is writing Leaf, and Oberon, which is Oberon's the last Griffin shifter of his species, and so that's really cool to see that play out. He's got a short story related to the series that's out that you can get if you sign up for the newsletter, and oh my gosh, the story's coming up. Frost Boarding House is a prequel series, and you're gonna want to read that. Yeah, and then we've got Outcast by Jesse, which is Leaf's story, kind of his descent into the vampire kingdom, and how he ends up hated by them all, kind of a thing. So, there's some incredible stuff, and there's going to be lots of incredible stuff coming, and it's all starting January 8th, and every 6 weeks after that, we're publishing another book. So, hop on that train now. I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. If you like vampires and shifters and romance and that sort. All right. That's all. Thank you. I hope you have a great 2019. Happy New Year.